Bring Me the Axe. I'm Brian White, one half of this morbid equation, and I'm joined by my co-host and actual brother, Dave White. Dave, how you doing?
Doing pretty good.
Yeah, you sound a little understated there, a little low energy.
Yeah, I am actually.
Yeah, but I'm a little bit too. I'm a fucking long ass weekend. But
it's been 1,000 degrees for I don't know, a couple of weeks now.
Yeah, the place I was at all weekend was like really, really air conditioned. So like I would go out and it would be like a wall of fucking oppressive heat, and then I'd go inside and just freeze my ass off for hours. So
Nice.
Little back and forth. Also, it would be really nice if literally every person in Massachusetts wasn't on I-93 at the same goddamn time that I was. Fucking Christ, man.
You are never going to get that.
No, that drive is the most insane shit in the world. Like, fuck Massachusetts, man. You had a nice little town there. Somerville, it's very nice. Very nice. But god damn it. Getting there, not easy. I hate it. So, we practically grew up in neighborhood video stores. Steady diet of utter garbage that those shops provided us with continues unabated to this day. There's no one else I enjoyed chopping it up with more about trashy movies than Dave. So just before we get into it, here's a little housekeeping. If you want to keep up with us between episodes, you can also find us pretty much on all the socials by searching Bring Me the Axe Horror Podcast. We got a sweet website now at bringmetheaxe.com. You can listen to all our past shows there and read the transcripts. That's the sort of thing you're into. You can also contact us directly at bringmetheaxepod@gmail.com with any questions, comments, or suggestions. Do let us know if there's a movie that you love and would like to hear us give it the business. And lastly, if you like what you hear, you can subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. And you'd be doing us a favor by leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It really does help. It's the sort of thing that kind of boosts our visibility. Takes you 2 fucking seconds. Please.
Yeah, just do it. God damn it.
I'm going to come to your house and fucking hold the phone in front of you. Like, what is taking so goddamn long?
Do people really read the transcripts? Is that a thing people do?
No. It's actually a thing that I do to kind of hack search engine optimization. Makes us a lot more visible on search engines.
Because I just thought, like, someone really appreciated some dumb shit I said, but they want to get the quote just right.
I hope not, because if you've ever actually gone there and read the transcripts, whenever we have moments where we talk over one another, whatever that algorithm is, it freaks out and doesn't.
It's like the YouTube closed captions.
Kind of, yeah. Like it's not quite as sophisticated as the closed captioning. So like there will be like Brian, word, Dave, word, Brian, word, Dave, word. And it'll basically spell out like an entire 5-minute conversation, like word by word. It's very funny, but it does actually kind of help in terms of just sort of like gaming the system and sort of like boosting our visibility. That's why I do it. No, I don't think anybody actually reads them, but we've got a very sophisticated website that I'm actually quite proud of. Oh yeah. So, hey, we're just getting that all out of the way right at the top of the show. So this is a fun one we got for you today. I'm gonna give you a little taste here, get you ready to fully appreciate what we're watching. Here comes the trailer.
Hi, my name is Stephen King. I've written several motion pictures, but I want to tell you about a movie called Maximum Overdrive, which is the first one I've directed. Wow.
What in the dickens is going on around here?
A lot of people have directed Stephen King novels and stories. And I finally decided if you want something done right, you ought to do it yourself.
Who was driving it? I don't know.
Curtis! It's coming after us!
It was my first picture as a director, and you know something? I sort of enjoyed it.
What is going on?
I don't know!
I just wanted someone to do Stephen King right.
You want a war? You got one. I just want to get the hell out of here.
So come and spend some time with me and my friends at the Dixie Boy. Spend some time in the dark.
Please don't let us be in the dark.
Help me.
I'm gonna scare the hell out of you. And that's a promise.
You're going to get us in an awful lot of trouble, man.
We already in trouble.
Maximum terror.
Jesus coming and he is.
Maximum King.
Maybe tomorrow will be our world again.
Dino De Laurentiis presents Stephen King's Maximum Overdrive.
Maximum Overdrive.
So you say that that's the first movie you ever directed, huh?
Yeah, if you want,
Wouldn't have known.
if you want something done right, you gotta get George Romero to do it. Oh boy,
Yeah, that I want to know how many times it took them just to get through the trailer.
the trailer.
He is like positively unhinged in that thing. He looks wild.
He's got that wonky eye going on, and they do that thing where I'm gonna scare the hell out of you, and he's like pointing at the camera.
Yeah.
It's kind of cringe, but I don't think there's ever a trailer where the fucking filmmaker himself comes out and like announces, "Hey, I'm the guy who made this movie. Boy, you're gonna love it."
Alfred Hitchcock
Okay,
does
yeah,
it.
okay. But obviously, the big sale here is Stephen King himself, right?
I mean, one of the posters has him on the poster taking up like half of the thing. The top half is like just him.
Yeah. What?
And that is not a man you want creeping out
No,
at you.
he's got kind of. I remember really when I go to the bookstore, you find his books. Whenever they put his photo on the jacket, it was always the most deranged looking picture of him.
Because he's had that like weird bowl cut for like 40 years.
Yeah. But like there would be like some where he was bearded and he just looked like insane with the beard. I don't know, the whole thing. Like obviously there was a strategy at work there. Stephen fucking King making a goddamn.
Oh yeah, I mean this is the movie that cocaine built. This is the cokiest movie. I've ever seen.
I describe this movie regularly as Cocaine the Motion Picture.
And I mean he has even admitted that he was this. I believe he said he was coked out of his mind.
Yeah. This movie,
and boy does it show.
Yeah.
This thing is like 1980s, the movie.
It's about as 1980s as it gets. Yeah,
like you can't. It is barely a story. It is nothing but explosion set pieces strung together with like this kind of weird human mundanity. That's like you have no context. There's no interiority to any of these people. The plot just sort of meanders, and then it's over.
Yeah, it's a stunt and pyro show basically, and thank God because I love that. What was the music playing in that trailer? Because that music is not in the movie. That sounds like maybe it was from Christine.
It's probably was.
Yeah.
It sounds like Alan Howarth or John.
Yeah, like it definitely has that Prophet 5 kind of synth sound and that beepy sort of Escape from New York thing they were doing.
Because the music for this, all of it is AC/DC.
Yeah,
like even the incidental music is AC/DC.
There's that. There's that kind of stabby thing they do whenever like there's vehicle violence. But yeah, for the most part, like AC/DC provided all of the music for this movie. So,
but they're like weird. They're not like the album version. It's like some of them seem like weird cuts from something else.
Yeah, I think. Well, I'll talk about
like there's the Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution that's like got this long rambling intro that just goes on for like 2 minutes.
I think that with the soundtrack they recorded 3 original tracks. So Who Made Who is the obvious one because that's the name of the album that was,
and it's a fucking bang.
It's a hell of a song. Like this is a really great record. And then the other 2, there's Chase the Ace, and there's another one that I can't remember the name of that were also recorded for it, but they were both instrumentals. And then I think the rest of them are either just they might be album tracks. I suspect that they were re-recorded for this because they're album
That's
tracks.
The way it sounds.
They're album tracks from like Back in Black and Fly on the Wall.
It's a weird greatest hits that's like, but they're not the original version.
Yeah, because there's a Bon Scott song on here, but I don't think it's Bon Scott. I think it's actually Brian Johnson singing the Bon Scott part. So yeah, let's do some facts. The year was 1986. So some other movies released that year: Invaders from Mars, Aliens, which who doesn't love Aliens?
Speaking of cocaine,
yeah, but that one, cocaine really did it some favors.
Yeah, it did.
Shopping Mall.
Hell yeah.
Right? Witchboard also came out in 1986.
I don't know about that.
No, none of that.
Is that Tawny Katane?
Tawny Katane, yeah. I believe that was her. No, because she's in Bachelor Party, but that was her first like starring role. Not a good movie, man. Not a good movie.
No.
Also, Nomads. Have you ever seen Nomads?
I don't think
It
so.
it was it might still be on Shudder. It's a Pierce Brosnan movie, and I tried to watch it and I turned it off 5 minutes into the movie because here's the thing with me and Pierce Brosnan. I think he's fine. Remington Steele, he got to basically play a James Bond like parody in the 1980s. Then in the 1990s, he was British and handsome enough to play James Bond himself. And then today, he is painfully handsome for a man in his 60s, and I look like this. It pisses me off like
Well,
you wouldn't believe. But
you're not Pierce
I'm
Brosnan.
not Pierce Brosnan. That man has like bulletproof genetics. Like that shit should be fucking bottled. I hope they have samples somewhere. But anyways, Nomads, right? He plays, I think he plays basically like an anthropologist in the movie. But the thing is, and I don't know why, maybe it was written into the script, but he's a French guy. And so he does the movie with this like French accent that is one of the most insane things I've ever heard. It's basically, let's see, Pepe Le Pew,
Mm.
a better French accent. Anybody else that you could think of. This is the most insane thing. They could have just been like, yes, I'm glad to see that you're here from Paris, and he could have just done his regular accent. It would have been
It sounds like it's a lot of like,
basically, yeah, like mustache twirling and
yeah.
baguettes and fucking berets and shit. It's one of the most deranged movies I've ever seen. I couldn't get through it because of the accent. I had to shut it off. Anyways, rounding out 1986, a movie that I just watched recently and I fucking love it as much as I did when I was 12, Critters.
I have not seen that probably since the 80s.
It's great. It's Chiodo Brothers doing all the special effects. It's very silly. As ridiculous as it gets, and it's the kind of movie that like it had a very outsized impact on my imagination when I was a kid. Like it's essentially like Bart Simpson versus a bunch of like ravenous little furry creatures. I love it. Love it to death. 1986, hell of a year for movies. Also, just recently watched Invaders from Mars for the first time in like a wicked long time. And I got to tell you, it stands up. It's a hell of a movie.
Karen Black.
Karen Black is in fact in that. And the boy who plays David Gardner is her actual son.
Oh,
Yep. It's a
David Gardner. Isn't that the name of the kid from what's the one about communism in the 50s? Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Oh.
Isn't that his name?
I don't know. The main character, the guy that Kevin
I think it's the kid.
Oh, I don't remember. I can't remember the last time I actually watched the original Body Snatchers. I've watched the 70s Body Snatchers a bunch because it's
They're both awesome movies.
It's fucking great. So, cast and crew, director, obviously, we said it, Stephen King, just like the trailer said. So, at the time, he was the biggest author of the 1980s, basically a guaranteed box office draw. This movie, honestly, I don't really know a whole lot about the history of this movie. I don't know how this deal came together, but it really does sort of make sense.
Well, I will tell you.
Okay, go for it.
It is this, as I understand it. So Dino De Laurentiis obviously made a bunch of shit in the 70s. And I think kind of what happened is like he really noticed that like B movies were really catching on, like the kind of cheaper not knockoffs exactly, but cheaper stuff.
Yeah, so I mean this is we deliberately chose 2 Dino De Laurentiis productions for this series because that's a really interesting thing because De Laurentiis is not exactly a schlocky guy. He's just a very savvy businessman, but like his output kind of bridges a weird gap between the respectable and the exploitative. Like Serpico is a great fucking movie. 3 Days of the Condor fucking rules. Like there are some really
Death Wish is pretty good.
Yeah, the original Death Wish I think is a solid movie. It gets kind of shit on because it's it's grimy and it's kind of nasty and the message is really fucking ridiculous, but it's a solid, like a very good movie. And then like going into the 80s, I mean, in the middle of the 70s, he did that bizarre King Kong remake with
So this is kind of how this happens because he does that's the one with like Jeff Daniels in it, right?
Is it Jeff
And
is
Faye
it Jeff
Dunaway?
Daniels or is it Jeff Bridges?
I remember Jeff Bridges.
Not Faye Dunaway, Jessica Lange. Jessica Lange is in it.
Yes. So there he makes that, and so he comes to Hollywood because he had been shooting mostly in like Italy,
Yeah.
obviously. And then would come here, but he was like, I'm gonna move here, and he wanted to open a like his own production company, which he
Yeah.
did. And they base it in North
Right.
Carolina
Because it was like a right to work
because
state, which fuck that. But
it is, and he I think he just really liked the state, and obviously it's one of those places that can stand in for a lot of different
yeah.
locations. So they start this company, and then he's like, he sets about buying all these properties, and obviously if you want to make a fuckload of money, you buy Stephen King properties because they had done well, obviously Carrie's a fucking huge hit.
Right, because like, yeah, one of the things I noticed when I looked over his filmography, like there were a shitload. Like the '80s was the golden age of the Stephen King theatrical adaptation,
Mhm.
and like 90% of them were produced by De Laurentiis.
Yeah. So so they've got Carrie, they've got The Shining, obviously huge. I think even Salem's Lot, the TV movie, did really well.
Yeah, oh yeah,
And so it was like, this is an obvious choice. And so he wants four different things. One of them is original. Well, kind of original. So he buys
Yep.
Firestarter, Dead Zone,
Dead Zone.
Cat's Eye, one other one.
So there's that. There's Maximum Overdrive. There's also Silver Bullet.
Yes. So he buys those four, and their deal was Stephen King was like, "Yes, I will sell you these. You can take these, but I want to direct something." And Dino De Laurentiis was like, "You know what? If you want to direct, then direct you shall. You must do
Yeah,
this."
yeah.
And so, but that was the deal. It's like, you can have these, but I want to make one too. And he was like, "Okay, fine. Like, it's probably not going to be very good, but." Actually, Dino De Laurentiis was really enthusiastic about pretty much everything. And so he probably was really into this movie, but that's kind of how it gets made. And it's the same crew on everything now, and a lot of the people who worked on it are Italian.
Yeah.
And because he just brought
Yeah,
them,
just brought him
these
over. This
people
like
he's
his
worked with.
people. He trusts them, so he's gonna.
And so they would be, and like these are people that worked with like Fellini, and so here they are, and they're just kind of like, "You want me to do what?"
Yeah.
Okay, I guess, because fucking Italian filmmakers are like, "Sure, it's a job, man."
Right. It's yeah, like worth noting. Italian production, Italian filmmakers, Amityville 2. Handed it over to
Yeah.
Dardano Sacchetti, script by or not Dardano
I mean, and
Sacchetti.
Dardano
Sorry,
Sacchetti
he
wrote
wrote
fucking
it.
every.
Damiano Damiani directed it. That's what I
Yeah.
meant. But yeah, that was just his pattern.
And you'll notice like the directors of these movies are kind of nobodies. Like even, Cronenberg wasn't anybody really at the time.
Yeah. Oh, they were cheap. And that's the thing, like Damiano Damiani was also not a very you think of Italian directors, most of them pretty fucking prolific. Damiani was not.
I think he was more of a writer than he was a director.
Most likely.
He was something
But he
else.
wasn't much of a director.
So that's what he does. He has these crews, and he gets these kind of newer, cheap directors, like because there's Cujo too. I think.
Oh, that's
I don't
right.
remember if that's him.
I can't remember.
But that's another one. That's the guy who directed that. I can't remember his name, but he's like a really good director. But none of them. I think he's the one who did. Who did Firestarter?
I don't remember.
I think it's him. Whatever his name is. But yeah, so that's kind of how this happens. So he's like, well, the rest of these movies are being made by kind of nobodies, so may as well have Stephen King make one.
Yeah.
And that is how we get this movie.
Yeah.
Well, that and a ton of cocaine.
Yeah.
Because everybody in this movie is fucked up the whole time.
85, 86 was peak cocaine in America. Like that. I remember fucking Miami Vice was floated entirely on the premise that cocaine was fucking everywhere.
Like every close-up shot of Emilio Estevez in this, he is high as hell. His eyes are glassy. He is covered in sweat.
Flushed and red-faced, red-eyed. Yeah. So this is 86. By 1986, easily half of Stephen King's published output had been adapted to screen in some manner. And also it kind of makes sense that he would want to direct his own movie because he's a well-documented fan of horror movies. Have you ever read Danse Macabre?
No.
That's his
That's the bad one.
That's
isn't it?
like the novel.
That's the one where you're like, oh Jesus Christ, man! You just stop talking. Stop saying things.
Well, that's the one that's like a novel length treatise on
it's like wild shit that he later goes on to like contradict himself constantly on because people will be like, well, you said this, and he was like, I said that. Guy must have been drunk.
Yeah,
like he has this weird bluntness, but he just sort of says whatever's in the front of his mind all the time, and I feel like that whole book is like that.
Yeah.
But he's also I think he considers himself very liberal. I think people assume he is very liberal. He is actually more of a kind of centrist, moderate, almost libertarian in his approach to things because he has a very small town
At
like
well,
worldview.
that's the thing, yeah. Because I mean, maybe at this time nowadays, I follow him on social media, and he is very, very Democrat. Like,
Yeah,
but
I
at the
think he's
time,
really
all of his like every one of his stories had that small town sensibility. All of his
I mean, there's that
heroes,
fucking horrible story about how he like goes to some Black Panther meeting and is like trying to stick it to the Panthers because he doesn't like their agenda, and it's like Jesus Christ,
yeah,
man.
yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and like
he
he has changed a little bit. I think he's a little more self-aware because he used to be not great when people would challenge him on things or ask him about things. Like there's a really incredible podcast called Just King Things.
yeah. Oh yeah, they're great.
Everybody should listen to
I
it.
love them.
It's fucking great.
They're fantastic.
But they go through and read a lot of the Castle Rock newsletter that was put out pretty regularly throughout the 80s.
Yeah.
And like people will write in and be like, why do you use the N-word all the time? Like, why do you feel so free to make your Black characters these sort of really put upon victims all the time? And he's just like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't see color. It's very much that where it's like,
Yeah.
I know you mean well, but you need to not talk and listen right
Yeah.
now.
Also,
Someone is giving you a fair critique.
yeah. Also, at a certain point, how much of that was also fueled by his drug use? Because cocaine will make you
I think he's just kind of an arrogant guy.
I
or
mean,
he
probably.
was.
I mean, the thing is, I mean, that's gotta also come with being one of the largest cultural exports of the 1980s. He certainly, after he cleaned up, things change. I definitely notice, and I don't know where you're at on his novels. I don't going into the 90s. I don't really care for any of that at all. Like,
I don't think I've read many from the 90s. I've read a lot of them for some reason. Yeah, I guess I think when you're a kid, this is like where you gravitate.
sure, like my like
as a young reader.
all of my favorite Stephen King stuff is I love the short stories that are in Night Shift and Skeleton Crew. They're some like some are better than others, and some are really not very good at all. But the bulk of his short stories are fucking outstanding. My favorite novel of his, hands down, is Salem's Lot. I love The Dead Zone. I also love Firestarter because it's kind of, I mean, it's not a great novel, but it's kind of a look at like what his run on the X-Men would have been like.
But that's also like where he was coming from at that time because he is considered the master of horror, but I don't think he really started out being a horror writer. I don't think he wanted to be. His books were they had frightening elements to them, but they were really like science fiction. Even The Shining is kind of like it's more about that kind of TK
Yeah. Yeah.
psychic bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, also, really, like what people consider as like magnum opus is like The Dark Tower, which is really a fantasy series.
I've never read any of them. They sound exhausting.
I've read the first two. I thought the first one was okay. The second one just didn't hook me, so I never went any further. The mythology of it sounds fascinating. I don't know. I can't really get into it, but also I don't particularly care for The Stand or It.
Oh God, no! The Stand is a terrible book.
I mean, we're making some pretty fucking hot takes right now. Like these are like The Stand is like
it is a rambling novel that is in parts just very badly written.
Yeah.
At a certain point, you can tell he's just struggling to get himself out of some rut that he's in,
Yeah.
but it takes like 200 pages to do
Yeah.
it. Because the thing about Stephen King, especially at this
Jesus
period,
Christ,
is that
his novels are so fucking long.
he is because he's considered to be uneditable, which means he basically whatever he says goes.
Yeah.
His editor and the publisher would just be like, "Sure, whatever you want, Steve."
Yeah.
And most people, I am someone who enjoys editing. Most people don't like editing. He clearly didn't think that he needed to be
Yeah.
because he actually went back and put all that dumb shit that got cut out of The Stand. And that's the only one you can get.
In the 90s, they were like the unabridged version, and I was like, damn, that sounds.
And it is dog shit. None of that needed to be in
Yeah.
there. Like he tells these rambling stories, and I think he is capable of great writing, and you can see it sometimes, but he's just as capable of bad writing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I mean, his treatment of women is horrible. He relies on stereotypes a lot.
Yeah.
Like he really leans into like gay stereotypes, black stereotypes, like any minority. It's pretty much just like anyone who is not a white man from a rural place, he cannot conceive of what their life would be like.
Yeah.
So he has to kind of fall back on really shitty, kind of flimsy portrayals of people.
Yeah, yeah.
And a lot of that comes through in this movie. You can tell, like, every single one of these characters is a fucking stereotype.
Oh yeah.
And like the thinnest, cheapest version of it. It's like the basest representation you can find. Like these people all have names. They may as well have not had them. They barely say them.
Yeah.
You don't need them.
Right.
I mean, there's like a fuckload of people in this movie for some reason, and I don't know who half of them are. They're just there to get killed.
Yeah, for sure. So, back to Maximum Overdrive. So King gets the screen credit, and I hate talking about shadow directors because a lot of the time it's bullshit. And the one thing that everybody,
I told you where I stand.
yeah, like
on it. I think
everybody
it's just
everybody points
myth.
to fucking Poltergeist. It's not true.
Which is a really shitty thing to say.
It's a great movie that fucking Tobe Hooper made. Spielberg was on set. He's a hands-on producer. But that is 100% a Tobe Hooper movie.
And
Fuck
everybody who worked on that.
Yeah.
Everybody who worked on it is like, yeah, no, Toby directed that movie.
Yep.
That's all. Like, yeah, Steven Spielberg was there and had a lot of input, but that is Tobe Hooper's movie.
Yep. So
you can see it in other shit.
Yeah.
It's not like everyone's just like, well, no, because he made Texas Chainsaw. It's like, yeah, he made 100 other movies too.
Yeah.
Why don't you name 3 of those?
Right. The rumor with this one is that George Romero directed a lot of it. And I think that is somewhat true in the sense that, one, he was definitely a regular presence on set. This is a time that that Stephen King and George Romero, they're very tight. So it kind of follows that if he's on set, he's probably helping King out, who realized probably almost immediately that making a movie is really fucking hard.
But the thing why I'm skeptical of that rumor is that George Romero has been very upfront about the fact that he didn't really know how to make movies any other way than the way he made them.
Yeah.
Like, so he would say, like, I'm not, when it comes to, that's why he had a particular, I think it was a 4-picture deal with, I can't remember what studio, but they were like, we will give you, in order to make whatever, I can't remember what the movie was, but they gave him this big deal, and he had never worked with a studio before.
Yeah.
And he was like, I was way out of my depth. I have no idea how to do, like, I know how to do everything myself.
Oh,
and
yeah.
How to
Yeah.
come at it that way, but I don't know how to make a movie with all this studio backing. That's why I find it a little hard to believe that you would be like, I'm going to call that guy to come help me on what is a probably pretty expensive movie.
Yeah. I mean, there is a lot of shit blowing up in this movie, like big pyro, lots and lots of stuff exploding all over the place. Like, this is not, it's not a small movie at all. Like, I mean, I could understand if he were there consulting just quietly.
Yeah.
In a friendly way.
I'm sure the cinematographer probably did a lot more.
Yeah. But yeah, Stephen King definitely had cocaine confidence in this movie.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's the parenthetical title.
Cocaine
Maximum Overdrive, Cocaine Confidence. Explosions, the movie.
Yep. Let's get to the cast. So obviously the star of the movie is Emilio Estevez, son of Martin.
And this is like peak Emilio Estevez.
Yes.
He's looking his best. He's at his peak of his power.
Right. Just off of Breakfast Club, just off of St. Elmo's Fire. He's the quintessential Brat Packer, son of Martin Sheen, brother of Charlie Sheen, nephew of Joe Estevez. He's been in, at this point, like I said, Breakfast Club. He's been in Repo Man. He's gonna be in Young Guns in like a couple of years. He's
in The Outsiders.
He's in The Outsiders. He is the 80s personified and is probably the least problematic son of Martin Sheen.
Yes.
We also get,
which, those are tough odds.
You really, really got to reach to sort of beat the champ in that one.
Yeah.
So we also get Laura Harrington, who is the love interest Brett. You've seen her in What's Eating Gilbert Grape and also Buckaroo Banzai.
You've seen her in a lot of things and you've forgotten everyone.
I can never remember her name. Ever.
Nope.
She's just there. And then rounding it out, we got a pre-Simpsons Yeardley Smith as Connie, who screams her way through the entire movie.
Every line in this film is she shrieks.
Curtis!
Every single one of them.
Is he
every
dead?
one of them.
Yep.
Oh, it is.
She must have been fucking hoarse after every fucking day of this, because all she does is screech and shriek.
Yeah, and she is at like an 11 the whole time.
There's a couple of people who are really swinging for the fences.
Yeah.
in this one. She is definitely one of them. I
I
also
kind of think they all are.
I love her and Curtis are my favorite characters in the movie.
Yeah, because they're the only two that really understand what movie they're in.
So
Don't forget Pat Hingle. You also get Pat Hingle.
oh right, he's
Hendershot. Bubba Hender.
But yeah, there's a lot of character actors in this because there's also Frankie.
There are.
Frankie Faison.
Frankie Faison is in this. Who else? Leon Rippey is in it. Guy from Deadwood. Somebody else is Giancarlo Esposito.
Right. He has
very beginning.
This is my note says a wild Giancarlo Esposito appears.
Yep. And there's also, I don't know if you watched the credits. I don't know why I did, but sitting through it, there is a Tabitha King plays woman number 1, and there's a character that is second woman played by one Marla Maples.
Oh, that's
the former Mrs. Trump.
Yep. Moola Mooples.
Yep.
So so some notes. This is adapted from King's short story Trucks. It appears in his collection,
which it should be said is about 8 pages long.
Yeah, it's actually I read it today while I was waiting. It's from the collection Night Shift. It's about 20 pages long, and it's one of the shorter stories in the book. Like the short, The Lawnmower Man, the movie adds quite a bit to pad out the running time for feature, but unlike The Lawnmower Man, it mostly sticks to the original themes.
Yeah, and unlike The Lawnmower Man, Stephen King didn't want to take his name off of this.
Yeah. So this movie feels obliged to explain itself with these.
Oh yeah, it is like if shit's not blowing up, they are throwing exposition at you left and right.
And it doesn't.
And when they're not doing that, they are just putting text on the screen.
Right. So that's my next point is this movie has these two ridiculous, it's bookended by these two utterly fucking ridiculous title cards that are just like, I don't know, maybe it reeks of producer notes. Like somebody was like, well, we have to explain what's going on because the novel,
and they're like weirdly cutesy.
Yeah. Like the novel not the novel, the short story. It starts off in the middle of everything and it ends on a real downer of a note, and it not once ever says, oh, and there's a UFO, by the way. Like it does not do that. It just kind of thrusts you into it and sort of trusts you with it. This one, not so much. So if the 80s was the golden age of the Stephen King theatrical adaptation, then the 90s was the golden age of the made-for-TV adaptation, which began with the objectively great adaptation of It, and ostensibly ended with the objectively bad adaptation of The Shining. Trucks was again adapted for television during this phase in 1987.
That's a sci-fi movie, isn't it?
It was USA. Yep. But rather than the adaptation being closer to the story, like many of these TV adaptations did, like this was, the TV adaptations were like a second chance to kind of give Steve like the output that he wanted. Because I guess in
he had a lot of control over the TV.
Yeah, like one of the motivations for doing this movie, it was literally when he says in the trailer, like, if you want to do something right, you got to do it yourself. He did object to the way that a lot of his movies were his novels were adapted to the screen. So when they went into them in the sort of in the 90s, and Mick Garris was doing most of them, and he was really tight with Mick Garris. So you got stuff like The Shining, which is way closer to the book. It just doesn't make for a very good TV movie.
And do you know the story about how he got the deal to do The Shining?
I do not.
Because Warner Brothers had to give their approval for it in terms of the licensing. And they said, okay, we will let this happen under one condition. And that condition was he could no longer slander the original. He could never talk about the original. Because he quite famously has spent a lot of time talking shit about how much he hates The Shining. And so that was the deal, is that if you want to make this, we will let you do that. However, you can never say another thing about it. And he hasn't.
I get the feeling that his objection to The Shining really rests on the fact that I don't know. I don't read a lot of interviews. I'm not terribly interested in what the guy has to say about his own stuff, but I get the feeling that the Shining, that Jack Torrance was a character that he felt was very close to himself, because he's a
he is an author insert.
Very troubled guy. I get the feeling that was a book that he was working out some internal shit on. And so
he really didn't like Jack Nicholson's performance, which I understand.
Yeah.
I'm not a Jack Nicholson fan. I think he plays the same character in everything.
Yeah.
And that was what he really objected to, but he fucking hated it. So that's why he ended up getting that one. That movie is so goddamn bad.
Yeah. Yeah. It's during that time when like visual effects CGI was getting cheaper to do on TV, but the stuff that they had the budget for was so fucking shitty. And so like we got the Langoliers where the VFX of that one are also
And that
really
story
bad.
is terrible.
Oh yeah, the Langoliers is garbage. But yeah, so
but but Mick Garris was still, I think, a decent. I think he still is.
He's done some great stuff. Like I'm not a fan. He's done a lot of Stephen King stuff, but he's a very capable director.
Didn't he make one of the Critters movies?
I think he did Critters 2.
Yeah.
And also he did one of the Masters of Horror. I can't remember which one, but I do remember when I got to it, I was like, oh, okay. Because I was seeing it come up. Did he do the Richard Matheson one with Robert Englund? I can't remember. I'll have to look it up.
The Dance of Death
yeah, that one. I'll have to look it up. But yeah, anyways, so this adaptation for USA where he was kind of redoing and sort of getting a chance to sort of like see his material adapted proper. This one is basically a fucking remake of Maximum Overdrive, but it's approximately 100% less fun. And also,
oh yeah, because this movie, Maximum Overdrive, is fucking terrible. This movie is so bad,
unbelievable.
But it is also one of the most fun movies you will ever see.
So great. Yeah. So this follows a well-established pattern of Stephen King's obsession with haunted automobiles. So he did it with Christine.
Yeah, there's like underlying everything here is this kind of weird fear of technology.
Yeah. He did it with Christine. He did it with From a Buick 8. I think there's a sort of ghost car in Riding the Bullet.
And I mean, to be fair, the 80s, the Cold War, I think, fucked with a lot of people, and the idea of technology was really scary.
Yeah. Well, also, I get this is a real sort of boomer quality that I think is sort of tied to the fact that like cars from the kind of like the golden age of manufacturing, they all sort of had character to them. The design, the way that they handled it, like it wasn't like now. Like today, cars are very ordinary. They have no character.
They're like everything else.
Basically, like there's no, everybody used to get real kind of like caught up in like Cadillacs as this like luxury auto, but like you look at a Cadillac, it's a fucking gigantic boat of a car.
Americans were sold on cars in order to like fund the Highway Expansion Acts and to sell, to drive up the price of oil.
Yeah.
That's the reason why we don't have any like train infrastructure in this country. Why it's all so bad is because I think much like guns, the government and I think kind of large corporations found a way to tie the automobile to the concept of freedom, which is then tied to the concept of like this idea of the American identity.
Yeah.
And that's why there's so much resistance to trains and buses in general. But it's what you're talking about. It's that idea of like, it's a unique, cool thing that's a part of us. It's a part of our history. And it's like, the fucking car, calm down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even I've got cars that I'm like into, and I'm not like a car guy, but like there are certain cars that, thanks to the way that they're kind of portrayed in movies and on TV, like I'm a real big fan of the Dodge, like the Mopars, so the Charger and the Challenger. And my Challenger obsession mostly goes back to
Steve McQueen.
No, that was the Mustang.
That's a Charger. The Charger is from Bullitt.
Oh, is it? Okay. Vanishing Point is the one that has the white Challenger. That after that movie, I was like, I gotta fucking get that car. So like, I mean, it definitely has an effect on me, but like you can see it. It's a big character in this movie where he even puts a fucking face on one of the trucks in here. So like, there's something about like the characteristics that make these cars sort of like really something to him. Like
weirdly though, it's trucks. It's not cars.
True.
It's never cars.
True. Because they're big and they're scary and they're noisy and they're big.
It's like everything else comes to life in this movie.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. That's the premise of the film. Yeah. Electronic things coming to life, except not cars.
Right. Because it's the movie's a little fucking hazy on the rules.
Oh yeah, there's no. Don't ask for details. Yeah, the details are not.
Just know this: you're okay if you're driving a car, but if you're driving a truck, you're fucked. So
also, perhaps these trucks can hear.
This is true. And
they can certainly see.
they can communicate, as we come to find out.
Yeah, they understand human emotions. Because these trucks are a bunch of fucking jerks.
Yep. Big time assholes. So the movie opens on a shot of the Earth from space with a strange green glow about it. A little title card announces that a comet would pass near enough to the Earth to put the planet in its tail for the next 8 days.
Comets were really fucking hot.
So
people were really excited.
Well, do you
about
know
that
why?
shit.
Because in 1986, Halley's Comet came really close.
Halley's Comet, yeah.
So and like there's a couple of movies at the time that really kind of cashed in on that. Life Force, famously, there's a comet that has a whole fucking spaceship full of vampires, naked vampires, no less.
You also get Night of the Comet.
If
you think you're going to get out of not watching that one, you are very wrong.
Yeah,
we're going to watch that film.
What? It's just it's a ticket clock on Night of the Comet for us.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah, comets were all the rage in the mid '80s because
comets and cars, man.
Yep, make no mistake. It was also like the golden age of the space shuttle until unfortunately 1986.
Yeah.
So we cut to the exterior of a bank in North Carolina. Its electronic marquee switches from displaying the time and weather to a flashing message which simply reads, "Fuck you."
Which you gotta wonder, how do they know? How did the aliens know that is offensive?
I know.
And also, I love that it just says "fuck you." Like to no one in particular.
Just everybody in Wilmington, North Carolina. And a gentleman played by Stephen King, dressed like an extra.
There's that fucking mug again.
Dressed like an extra from a Weird Al video, approaches the ATM and the machine calls him an asshole. And he's like, "Hey, honey, you got to come over here. This machine called me an asshole."
You know what I love about Stephen King? I like the fact that he is a terrible actor. He pretty much knows it, but he does not let that stand in his way.
Does not give a fuck, because he looked in the mirror after doing an entire 8-ball by himself and said, "You got this, Steve."
Yeah, this movie is basically the end of Scarface. Like, that is how this happened.
Yep. So, the titles for the movie come on and they play over cars passing over a drawbridge.
I have to tell you, this opening to this film, it is only rivaled by Sleepaway Camp as the greatest opening to any movie ever. It does not make any sense. It is so crazy, and it goes on for like 8 fucking minutes.
Long. It's like 10 minutes of the movie. So the operators are dopey shitheads that seem really common among like horror movies of the 80s. Like this movie is like one step away from a trauma movie where there's a guy who's like will like sniff his own farts or something like that. It's got some real lowbrow comedy.
Yeah, this is an extremely juvenile movie.
Yeah, one of the guys is like 3 knuckles deep up his nose. And they're playing cards, and then the bridge begins to operate itself, kicking off one of the most demented sequences ever committed.
Because it is so slow.
It's
the action that is happening in the scene as the bridge opens. There's lots of people on the bridge in their cars, and everyone's like, "Oh, what?
Oh no!"
And then some guy slides off of his motorcycle and just plummets into the ocean.
into the river. Yeah, so the bridge is...
And the more the bridge opens, the things start to fall, but everything's falling in really slow motion, but it's falling at a rate that is impossible.
This is the thing. So there is a scene where a car slides very gently into another car, and the fucking woman driving it flies through the
straight through the
windshield, presumably dying. There's
the watermelon. There's a truck of watermelons, and then the watermelons start falling at some velocity that seems not right.
Let's put a pin in the watermelons because that's
my note. Because my note just says watermelons.
So the bridge is,
you know what to do.
The bridge is slowly rising, and traffic stops, and not one of these fucking morons thinks I should probably get out and walk to safety.
Yeah, there's a lot of all you need to do is step 10 feet to your right in this movie. Like every death is easily avoidable.
A truck is stopped like directly on the seam of the bridge, and the driver actually gets out and looks and considers getting down and walking away before he's like, "Nah, I can drive this out of here." And then
he doesn't.
No, he doesn't, because the bridge eventually lifts to such a point that the fucking entire rear axle breaks off and rolls away, and then the truck falls into the river too. But there's people falling out of the cars. There's people there's motorcycles sliding just everywhere. There's people crashing into one another very
It is
gently.
anarchy. It is pure anarchy.
And then everybody is just violently sailing all over the place. And then watermelons start flying everywhere because there's a truck full of watermelons everywhere. And it's not just that they're flying everywhere. People see them coming at them and react like they're about to be hit by a fucking asteroid.
And you know that writing this movie, he was just like in a frenzy, just typing.
He wrote
wildly typing, is foaming at the mouth, and then he goes, watermelons!
Just all over the place, causing total pandemonium. This is one of my favorite scenes of all time. Like this is the second time I've watched this movie in a couple of months. Like there was a period where I was on a work trip to Los Angeles, and my flight got bumped, and so I had a ton of time to kill while I was like calling, the airline and like hotels and shit. And I was like, you know what? I haven't watched Maximum Overdrive in a while. Like I should put that on. And this scene came on, and I was like, why have I not watched this movie sooner? Like, why has it taken me this long to come back to this one? Because I have avoided this movie for a very long time because my memories of it are not good. And clearly,
I think until recently, I had not seen this since, because I remember this is one of the movies that I remember was on WLVI all the time. This was one that ran a lot.
Yeah, it was that, and we had cable at the time, and I remember it playing a lot then because the ads ran a lot. This was a very heavily marketed movie, as I recall, and I remember seeing scenes of just
you're gonna need it.
Yeah, like the trucks driving in circles around the truck stop and being really kind of troubled by it. Like something about that when I was
I remember being really upset about this because the first time I saw it, I was probably
if I was 12,
would have been in the 80s.
Yeah, I think it was 12 or 13 when this came out. You would have been about 6 or 7. So yeah,
6 or 7.
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember being really upset by it because not the part at the truck stop. It's the part. Well, you'll get there eventually, but when the kids are getting killed.
Yeah.
I remember that being very upsetting to me as a child.
It's not something
and watching it now, it is fucking hilarious.
Awesome. But yeah, back then, they didn't do that in movies. And so as a child, you're like, holy shit, they're out to get us.
Steve's going to take you there.
Yep. So we cut to the Dixie Boy truck stop. And the first thing we see is the iconic Happy Toys truck. And it's the one thing that everybody recognizes in this movie. It's on the fucking front of every VHS and DVD, Blu-ray box. This is the truck with the Green Goblin face on it.
Do you think they had to pay for that?
They must have. You can't just do that. They would have had to.
Because there's a lot of product placement in this, and I wonder if it was consensual or they were just we just need fucking trucks, and trucks have brands on them.
The thing is I'm a comic book fan going a ways back, and I read it's called Marvel Comics: The Untold Story, and it's a exhaustive history of Marvel Comics, and this is during that period where Stan Lee was out there basically giving the Marvel license away to whoever.
Oh yeah, this is when you get those. You get the Fantastic Four movie that never came out. You get the Captain America movie that never came out. This is around that same time.
Yeah, so I guarantee De Laurentiis wrote a check for $100, and Stan Lee was like, "Yes, I'm in movies now." So, because it's the Green Goblin. If you don't gotta know, you don't gotta read those comics to know that face. It's one of those.
Yeah, he gave him $100. He hugged Stan Lee very enthusiastically and invited him back to the house.
Yep, Stan Lee,
because that seems like that's the kind of guy he was.
Yeah, Stan Lee, he was in love with show business, and said he really, really wanted to be involved in it. And I guarantee he told people for years that him and Stephen King were tight bros.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, this is a really great way to sort of punctuate and sort of put a character to an otherwise uncharacterizable villain.
Yeah, you have to anthropomorphize this because otherwise there's nothing threatening about it. Unfortunately, they don't use this image as much as people probably remember they did or think they did.
It's not. Yeah, because
this is not really in it that
definitely
often.
Not as prominent as I certainly remembered it being the big menacing thing. When I came back to it, I was surprised by how little that truck is in it.
Driven by Frankie Faison of The Wire.
Yep. Frankie.
And Sounds of the Lines.
Yeah, all of the Hannibal Lecter movies. So, so the driver, this is Frankie Faison. His name is Handy, which I don't know what that is short for. I could not.
Doesn't matter. You're not going to need to know it.
Who cares?
They're never going to say it
Here's
again.
The thing. It's Frankie Faison.
Yeah, you know him when you see him.
So he stops for gas. He heads into the diner, which is where we meet Wanda, waitress, who's gonna.
This is the greatest character in this
She
movie.
is
She is phenomenal.
off the fucking hook from the start. Yep, and we also meet Bill, who's our stock blue collar Stephen King
He really-
everyman.
This is the same fucking character from Graveyard Shift.
Yep. Oh, and
this-
fucking The Mist, and
Yeah, it's working class, like blue collar, working class hero type who has gone to college though, because that's
Right,
very important
right.
that he's educated. He's educated, but he's not arrogant, and you know that because he works at a truck stop. These are more of like Stephen King's weird hangups that he has about class.
Yeah. And so back in the game room, this is where we find Giancarlo Esposito, which I think this might have been like either his first role or one of them, because
It's pretty early.
he's got some lines, but there's not much to it. He appears in the game room as all the machinery in the game room is going nuts.
What was his big? Was he in Stand and Deliver?
He was in Do the Right Thing.
Yeah, that's right.
So like all the shit's going crazy. The glass on one of the pinball machines breaks, and we cut to a close-up of him where he like spits "yo mama" at the pinball machine for some fucking reason. But yeah, we cut over. Coins and cigarettes come flying out of the cigarette machine. There's coins going everywhere, and he proceeds to stuff every pocket, under his hat, everything with whatever he can get his hands on. Now, outside of the gas pump, the attendant Duncan is pumping gas on the Happy Toys truck. We get a look at the side of the truck, which reads, "Here comes another load of joy."
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
It's just the beginning. We're going up the hill on the roller coaster right now. Because there will be fart jokes coming.
Yeah.
And that's not all.
The pump stops pumping, so like a fucking jabroni, he takes it out, he looks down the barrel of this pump, gets a face full of fucking diesel, which blinds him.
And he reacts like he just got shot in the face. He is howling and screaming. I'm sure it burns and is probably deeply unpleasant.
Yeah, getting gasoline in the face probably sucks, but like you would think that he just got shot with a flamethrower.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is where
like everyone is just fucking doing it for the back rows on this movie.
This is where we first hear, like, this is the only, I wouldn't even really call it music. It's an audio sting that they use whenever the machines are doing something villainous.
And it's super recognizable.
Yeah.
It's been used in other things.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I mean, it's fucking the shower scene. It's Bernard Herrmann again. Yeah. Like, everybody rips this off because it's great. It works. It really.
Yeah, if you're gonna rip someone off, rip off Bernard Herrmann. He was really good at what he did.
So yeah, gets the job done. I love it. And we cut to the boss, Bubba Hendershot's office. We learn that.
Now my question is his name Bubba? Because he also calls everybody.
He calls everybody Bubba, and at one point when he's on the radio later, he says this is Bubba Hendershot.
Yeah, okay. I think that is a very odd touch.
Very, very weird, yeah.
Like, that is your name, but you also call other people by your name.
Yeah, it's like the Iron Sheik. Everybody's Bubba to him. We learn that he's...
I wish the Iron Sheik were in this.
Oh, man. Fucking pour one out for the Iron Sheik. He was the best.
Yeah.
Yep. So we learn that Bill's boss, Hendershot, is a crooked piece of shit in the way that Stephen King does. He's got one of these guys in every one of his stories. He's a one-dimensional jerk who wants Bill to work 9 hours for 8 hours pay. He has a holdover Bill because he's out on parole, and this Hendershot says, "You belong to me, or you belong to the state of North Carolina."
Which I'm pretty sure is exactly the same plot as Graveyard Shift. I think it's the same thing in that movie.
Yeah.
That movie's fucking garbage.
Yeah, that's the thing, but that's another thing about King is he tends to recycle stuff. Like, I feel like The Dark Half, there's another story that was adapted in the 2000s, I think. I think it was the one with Johnny Depp, which was the
Secret Garden, Secret Window,
Secret Window.
like that. Secret Window,
same fucking story as The Dark Half.
Yep.
Yeah, so like he has a tendency to recycle shit in his own stories. I don't know.
It's because people will buy anything.
People will fucking buy anything. He's probably just got filing cabinets full of fucking manuscripts that like he doesn't even remember writing. Like I believe Pet Cemetery was one that he just had kicking around, and he ended up like submitting it to a publisher in order to get out of a fucking a contract with them. So like, yeah, apparently he's just got shit kicking around in like different states of draft and
Yeah, and he's like, it's like Mondo. Like you just slap the name on it and people will buy whatever it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, yeah. And then they'll sell it for thousands of dollars on eBay.
Yep.
But yeah, this is a big setup so that we can feel really great about his inevitable death. When I saw this guy, I thought of Marcia Gay Harden's character in The Mist. She's that like religious zealot who it's just like, oh, she's gonna fucking die.
Another stock character.
Yeah. But
like it's someone we can build up to the point where you absolutely hate them, so you will experience glee when they die.
Yeah. So back in the game room, Esposito has cigarettes and coins stuffed everywhere. I guess becomes enraptured by the weird shapes and sounds on the video game screens, which I noticed I can't remember what the name of that deck of cards is, but it's those symbols they use when they're like testing ESP, like what's the shape?
Oh, Zener cards.
Zener cards. That's the one. It's that. And so I think it's supposed to be like hypnotic or something because it's like psychic and shit, but he becomes like enraptured.
He's just working that you got to get that TK in there, man.
He becomes enraptured by this thing, and he becomes compelled to touch the video game, which results in a fatal shock. Ends up flying. Ends up shocked to death somehow. But I will say this: I used to work in a pizza and video games place for children, and if those video games are not grounded properly, you will touch certain parts of them and get quite a surprise. I have been shocked so many fucking times by video games. So meanwhile, back in Civilization, we meet Deke, which I fucking love that name. I don't. It must be like.
Oh, is this the kid?
This is the little kid. That must be short for
He's
like Deacon or something like that. But all I think
so.
When I think of Deke, I think of fucking Strong Bad and that like basketball player character that he's always talking about. The Deke was standing at the stop of the key, and I'm all like, I'm open. That's all I think about whenever I hear that name. But
he's a very strange looking boy. Like he has this kind of odd androgyny.
Yeah,
that he's like. It's
hard to tell how
every time they focus on him, I'm like, you're kind of creepy looking.
Yeah. He's at his little league game. They win. The coach treats the kids to sodas from a nearby machine and pays dearly for his generosity. Yep. When the machine fires cans at him like a fucking machine gun because it's a Stephen King.
And the first one hits him right in the nuts.
Because it's a Stephen King movie in the 80s.
Because it's like a 12-year-old on coke wrote this movie.
Yep. He ultimately gets beamed in the head. And I really, really wish that they had seen fit to go all the way with this and just like embedded a can like in his head, like in that movie fucking Idle Hands where the guy's got the bottle.
I mean, because they kind of do, like the imprint is there. This is everything in this is practical effects. There's nothing digital in this movie at all.
Nope, way before that. But so the cans start fucking flying. We cut to this like wide shot of all the baseball players like standing, and the machine is just spinning. It's like there's probably like production assistants standing off frame, throwing cans at children, but they're like wildly flying everywhere. There's kids getting hit, they get knocked over.
And my note says there's nothing better than kids getting attacked by a snake.
It's one of the funniest scenes in the movie.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, but out in the outfield, the kid goes ass over handlebars for some reason. Like this
This is another example of just get up and move.
Yep, that's all you gotta
do.
But
he doesn't. It's like that Austin Powers scene where the guy just stands there as the... It's that.
Yeah, that scene. But I think that's why I like Kurt and Connie, because they're the only characters in the movie who are like, I can just jump out of the way instead of doing what everybody else does when a truck is bearing down on them and turning and running away.
Because every person in this movie was waiting for someone to direct them. Yeah. Kurt and Connie are the only ones who are like, I guess we're on our own. Let's go, baby.
They really are. They're an island unto themselves, and they are surviving.
Like they get it. They know what movie they're in. Yeah.
But the kid goes flying, into the thing. He's off his bike. He's laying there, and then fucking he's right in front of the scoreboard, and then a fucking steamroller comes like flying at like 100 miles an hour through the thing, rolls over the kid. We catch a glimpse.
And it was that scene. It was the steamroller
Yeah,
that used to freak me
that
out.
also, I used to think that was kind of a bummer. Nowadays, I think it's hilarious because we get a fucking glimpse of him going under the big like steamroller wheel. So apparently, in the original cut of this movie, they set up this effect where it was supposed to be like a Bugs Bunny kind of thing, where the thing goes over him and there was like a blood bag set in the outfield so that it would drive over it and then get it on the wheel and then ride across the baseball field with like this big streak of blood behind him. But that's not really how shit works. So it rolls over this blood bag and the fucking stuff went everywhere. Like every drop of blood in the kid just came out. Apparently Stephen King was like, awesome. I don't give a shit. That's the best. Cut it, print it.
Yeah.
This is
Why didn't they put that in? Why would they not leave
it was one of the things they had to cut for an R rating. Because apparently this movie was way, way, way more violent than the movie that we got. And
I want to see that.
I want to see it also. Apparently those cuts have been lost and we will never see them. But there's a lot of little like 2 seconds, 3 second cuts.
God damn you, Vestron.
Oh, Jesus Christ, I know. But like they're little bits, like it was basically a death by 1,000 cuts for this movie. So there's a lot of stuff that didn't get in. There's just some story about like it made Romero sick when they watched the dailies. I don't fucking buy it. Nothing makes that guy sick.
I doubt that.
I mean, have you not seen Day of the Dead?
Day of the Dead.
Jesus Christ.
Yep. Choke on him.
So use your imagination on this shit. So next we meet Brett, who's a hitchhiker, and the rapey Bible salesman Loman, who are driving down the highway in a car that is for some reason unaffected by what's happening. As we come to find out, cars are fine.
And Brett, she's the one, Laura
Harrington, right? Yeah.
She has got the weirdest fucking energy in this movie.
It's all over the place.
I don't know what she's doing, but she is a strange character.
Yeah. So driver Loman he keeps putting his hand on her leg until she threatens to cut his hand off. And then that's when they roll into the Dixie Boy, have a very vigorous exchange of words out in the parking lot.
Which all seems really inappropriate because it's like she grabs the wheel and pulls into the thing, and then she jumps out of the car and he like chases after her, but it's like, you just met her. Yeah. You don't give a shit about her or why she wants to get out of your car. Yeah. What is this scene?
He's another one of those characters that appears in a lot of fucking Stephen King stories where it's the fake Christian. There's a lot of those guys. He's a guy because he's a Bible salesman. You see him pitching people in the truck stop a little later on, but it's bullshit because he's got his fucking hands all over this woman who he picked up. And then when she like rebuffs him, he gets out and he's like, how dare you talk to me like that? And then like, for some reason, like this is when the truck starts up, the toy truck, and just about backs over him, but she sees it coming and yanks him out of the way. Now we meet Curtis and Connie, just married, my favorite characters in the movie. Ooh. They are so great. So like I said, she
is so obnoxious.
She spends the entire fucking movie screaming. And I think the first shit that she says is like at the top of her lungs. They're in like a just married, the car's all decorated and shit. She says something about like, oh, I've got to pee. And this is the first of two parts where Curtis displays an uncanny enthusiasm for watching her pee. There's another line a little later on.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird interaction between them that is just so great.
Yeah, he's like, hey, you mind if I watch it? She's like, get the fuck away from me. Like, this might be like something that he is just revealing to her now that they're married.
But the weird thing about these two is that nobody in this movie has chemistry except for
them. They're the best.
Like, they know what they're doing. They get it. Like, I don't know if like Stephen King, like you can direct two people and he was like, okay, you two. Yeah. And then everybody else is on their own because they really know what they're doing.
A little later on, like they kind of clumsily thrust Brett and Bill together because we got to have
in the most awkward, like unrealistic way.
Yeah, like,
but that's again that thing Stephen King does where it's like people in peril are going to take a break, just some time out to fuck each other. Like that's not gonna happen. Yeah. That's not a thing you're gonna do.
Right. But like, we've got a pair of characters whose relationship is romantic. It makes sense. It's realistic. I don't know why they felt like they needed to do it with maybe it's just because he's the hero of the story. He's got to get a piece. it's clumsy. It's fucking bullshit. It doesn't make any fucking sense. And I don't buy it for a second, but
No.
they stop to get gas. They find a dead body at the first station that they stop at. And then while he's sort of like inspecting it, this is where she's like, Curtis, is he dead? Which all of her shit is delivered with a ridiculous accent. And this is when they come under attack by Franklin's tow truck from GTA 5. Yep. And it crashes and this is the moment where it comes at him, and instead of turning to run, he does the fucking logical thing and just steps aside, and it crashes, and it's incapable of chasing them.
But then he's laughing as well. He does a lot of weird, like, at least he makes a lot of weird choices with this character that don't make sense, but it's kind of like there's something so awkward and charming about him that it's kind of like, I just like watching you like kind of stumble around flailing and then laughing and then like doing this kind of weird jaunty run.
Yep. So now we get to the part where, like we just talked about, where Bill and Brett are kind of thrust together. They're outside. They're like, whoa, that was crazy, huh? Like remarking on this truck that's taken off by itself. Then just apropos of nothing, she says, you're cute. He's like, you think?
Yeah, and it's so, there's nothing authentic about it. It just feels so like, ew,
it's very sudden
gross.
and abrupt. There's no way to sort of build towards this. They just don't have fucking time. So they were like, here, you two are into each other.
And everybody is just high as hell.
Yeah.
Like they're just, he looks like what is Joe Spinell in
in Maniac.
Maniac. He's just like sweating. His eyes are all fucking glassy and red.
Yeah.
I'm like, he's a good looking guy, and he looks like hell for this whole movie. It just looks like he's about to have a heart attack.
Yeah. And so this is when we cut back to town as Deke rides around his neighborhood, and the radio broadcast kind of plays over this, as gives us a sense of scale that this is
like, here you go. Here's some more exposition.
This is, just so you all know, this is happening everywhere. And there's dead bodies all over the neighborhood. For some reason,
this part is so awesome.
It is. For some reason, there's a dog that's been killed by a radio-controlled fucking police car.
Yeah.
I would like to know how this worked.
I would like to know how the guy got killed by his Walkman.
Like, how did it do this? I mean, as we find out, like, the stuff, like, the machines can kind of move around on their own, which... But like, yeah, this
or like the lady who's hanging out the window with her hair dryer
wrapped around.
How did the hair dryer kill you?
How does hair dryer work?
Exactly.
Yep. The rules here are super hazy. Deke ends up chased by an evil lawnmower that is fucking blood drenched.
Okay, the lawnmower is the first time I noticed this. I don't know if you noticed this at all. Every now and then, the car or whatever thing is coming to life will growl.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I was like, what is it? Is that what that is? And then like, I was like, nah, I probably just misheard it. And then it happens like 4 or 5 more times with other things.
It's like the shark in Jaws 4, where they're like, we need to give this thing a little menace, so it fucking roars like a lion for some reason, like they do that. Sound, they definitely do that with sound a little bit, because there's also the ice cream truck scene in this where he tries to evade it by hiding. The ice cream truck is playing a song. Everybody kind of everybody recognizes that those things play songs. So the Mr. Softy theme, the ones that used to drive around our neighborhoods played fucking that ragtime song, The Entertainer. And this one is playing King of the Road by Roger Miller, which I think is a really funny detail.
It's an odd choice.
It's a very odd choice, but it's also kind of ominous. Because it's the only thing that we see driving around the neighborhood. Like everything else is stopped. Okay, so yeah, we're back at the Dixie Boy. Duncan decides that...
Oh, wait, did we skip the part where they go into... I think it's Emilio Estevez goes into Frankie Faison's truck?
Yes. So that's...
And he pulls the curtain back, and there's a Jack-in-the-Box in there.
Yep.
And I was like, why is there a Jack-in-the-Box strategically set up as though...
Also...
he was waiting for someone to do that.
Was the Jack-in-the-Box also like controlled by the aliens or whatever?
And it's also the Green Goblin.
Yeah. But yeah, that's like
it just came with the truck.
There's so many illusions. Like we've mentioned Amityville 2, we've mentioned we just talked about it another episode. Oh, fucking Maniac, and now we're talking about another Jack-in-the-Box like in House on Sorority Row. It's got all the fucking leitmotifs that have appeared in other episodes of our pod. But yeah, great. I did sort of speed past that because not much really happens. That's right before Bill and Brett get together.
Boo.
Yeah, fuck them. But yeah, Duncan is the guy who gets gassed in the face, and he's all blind and shit. So he's got to get out there and find his boy. As we find out, his boy is Deke. There's a picture very clumsily placed on a desk somewhere of the kid. The only problem is he can't see shit. And also, Hendershot threatens him with firing if he goes off in search of his son without clocking out in the middle of this fucking truck apocalypse. But Duncan doesn't make it very far as a nearby garbage truck fires up and charges at him, taking him under the wheels.
And he just stands there.
Yeah, he drops his keys and he stands there and screams before he gets hit. Then it smashes into Loman's truck, dumps garbage all over it. Loman is enraged by this because he's a fucking piece of shit, and he goes running out and stands there.
Yeah,
and
this is the great part when he's like trying to sell them Bibles.
Yeah.
And he's talking about Bibles, and then all of a sudden he like sees the thing hit the car, and he jumps up and he goes, "Get out of my way, bitch!"
Yep. Also, Hendershot has referred to Brett as a piece of road twitch, which is such a fucking gross thing.
That's really gross.
Terrible, awful thing to call a woman. It's so fucking gross.
Stephen King,
Stephen King, man. But yeah, he goes.
We also skipped the part where Wanda gets attacked by the knife.
Shit, that's right. Yeah. Oh, actually, no, because is that happened or is that coming up?
That has already happened.
Oh,
it happens pretty early on, I think, doesn't it?
I am.
It happens like right after when everyone shows up there, and the thing is just fucking sawing into her, and she is just losing her goddamn mind.
Because that is actually that's very early on, and I had notes about it, but yeah, she it's just one of the first things that really happens is there's one of those like electric carving knives like on the on the counter next to her as she's like cooking, and the thing kind of like slowly turns on its own, and like a fucking asshole, she just like she could have just moved it, but she
just stands there while it saws into her arm.
Reaches underneath the blade, and then the thing like comes on, cuts her real bad, and she kind of whacks it and falls onto the floor, and then it goes at her like fucking Jaws and like saws her foot. And
this is our first hint that something is
right.
wrong.
She is like covered in blood by this, and like one of the fucking good old boys in the kitchen is like, "Hey, one of those things there, bitches, sweetie." Like they're like joking about it.
You're gonna die too.
Yeah, and and then they cut to her, and it's like Bill is like helping her. They've got like a bloody towels all over. There is a lot of blood. This is like Elevator in The Shining amount of blood on this girl, and they're just sitting there.
And she just flies right off the rails, and she stays there.
Oh god, yeah, she is cranked up to the top, and they have pulled the knob off for her because she is about to go fucking nuts. But first, Loman charges out into the parking lot, and this is when the toy truck suddenly backs into him.
Sends him flying across the road.
Turns to run from it, and instead of just getting out of the way, he tries to run from it, and the thing hits him, sends him flying into a drain.
These are semi-trucks. They don't move that quickly.
No. Takes a while to gain speed. They turn very slowly. You could just leap to the side. But no, he gets hit, and he gets launched into a drainage ditch, and that's where he stays. So now all of the trucks in the lot fire up, and they begin to drive single file like in a ring around the truck stop. And this is a thing, like I don't know what it is. I love a good siege movie, and this.
Have you ever seen Siege?
I have not. It's been on Shudder, and I have flirted with watching it several
times.
It is
a very odd movie about a bunch of dudes who escape a gay bar.
Yeah.
It's very strange. I recommend it.
Cool. I'll have to watch it. It's been one of those.
It's like if Assault on Precinct 13 took place in a gay bar. It's basically that.
I can get it. It's Canadian too.
Yep.
This scene, for some reason, like there used to be like we'd see the ads or we'd see the previews or something. It would always use the scene of like the trucks just driving around and around and around, and something about that really bothered me when I was like 12. It's very menacing, but like now as an
because
adult,
there's something weirdly ritualistic about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like circumambulation is a very big piece of like ordinary sort of like daily ritual practice in a lot of like Western esoteric. So like, yeah, like I can see that, but like, yeah, something about that really got under my skin. As an adult, I watch it and I'm like, ha.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And it's so heavy-handed.
yeah, because it's like dust going everywhere.
Everything in this movie is heavy-handed, but especially this.
Yeah. So we cut to Kurt and Connie, who are still on the road. They come under attack from another truck. Connie again screaming and screaming and screaming. Curtis managed to psych out this truck that's chasing them. And this is like kind of a protracted car chase scene. It's pretty cool. And he manages to psych it off, causes it to run off the road, and we get a fucking awesome fiery crash as the truck goes out.
And then as they pull away, he says, "I think I just loaded my pants."
Yep. Which that might be a good thing for him. Yeah. So when they come upon the truck stop, and the thing is, he sees a gap between some of the trucks, and he's like, if I can drive through that gap at just such a speed, like we can make it through. And she's like, why? Well, he's stuck with him, which is a fucking pretty good point. He's like, but are we going to be safe out here? Maybe. I don't know.
Doesn't seem like it.
No, but so they start the drive, and we cut to this like scene from behind the cars. It's taking off, and the back of the car says, "Good luck, Kurt and Connie," which I love. I love that little detail. But like, yeah, they see them coming from the inside of the truck stop, and they're like, "What the fuck are these people doing?" So they go out, sort of in anticipation of helping them. And the car almost makes it, but it gets clipped by a truck, and they end up going fucking end over end. And they're stuck in, and everybody's
just Connie just shrieking.
Yep. Oh my god, yeah, because she's like legit stuck in the thing. She's like, I told you not to use a seatbelt. For some reason, so they cut her out, and this is when we find out that fucking Hendershot, for some fucking reason, has a missile launcher and a lot of missiles.
Yeah, but you know what? There is what is more 80s than a goddamn bazooka?
Yeah.
Like the only thing that would have made it even more 80s is if he had an Uzi in one of his other hands.
There's an Uzi in this fucking movie. Curtis ends up with the Uzi at the end. That's how they. Yeah, but yeah, like this was such a common fucking thing. So we find out is Hendershot's got like an arsenal in the basement,
but it's never. They never really explain why.
They never explain why. Like, is he a fucking arms dealer on the side?
That's that's like kind of what's implied. Like, there's something about that because again, that feels very 80s. This sort of like weapons dealer.
Oh, sure. Like everybody had to have that. Like that was straight out of Commando, and then Rambo came out. And they did the same sort of thing because every movie's got to have that scene where they're like loading up and they're getting ready, and there's always a fucking secret arsenal of weapons.
Because these are 80s guns.
Yeah.
Like these are the biggest fucking weapons you could possibly buy.
Yep. And also,
he's got them all in the basement of his truck stop
for some reason, and as a testament to how Italian this movie is, some of those guns they're Italian submachine guns. So yep.
And it's the guy, the guy. Is it his son?
It's not
kind
really,
of bumbling idiot.
It's not really clear what their relationship is, but sure, why not? But yeah, because there's that scene where, after that, there's that scene where like fucking Bill goes and sort of intrudes on him as he's taking a dump.
Yep,
he, like,
that's where you're gonna get some fart jokes here.
Yeah, so They wreck one truck and then they reload and they hit another one, and because it's a fucking 80s movie, the truck explodes and rolls of burning toilet paper just go in every direction.
And you could have had anything. Why toilet paper?
Because it's toilet paper and it's funny.
I guess so.
Yep, I love that. Love it.
Now, they could have probably solved their fucking problem with whatever this arsenal in the basement was, but they just stop. He shoots two of them and he's like, okay, I'm done.
There is no end to how many fucking missiles he's got too.
Yeah, he's got tons of them.
Yeah. They could have fucking dealt with it because apparently they're all really good at shooting these giant trucks with these fucking missiles. So we find out that Brett is hitchhiking her way to Florida. This gives her an opportunity to say the name of the movie in the dialogue. I was on my way to Florida before everything went maximum overdrive or something like that. And I was like,
ding, ding, ding.
She said it.
She said the name of the movie. She said.
Yep. So we cut back to Deke, who is now near the truck stop, and he gets buzzed by Chekhov's airplane.
Yep.
And then for some reason, down in the basement, we learn about Bill's criminal record. This plays no fucking role in the movie whatsoever, but they spend a lot of time.
It's only to come back because at the beginning, that's why he's like manipulating him and saying, you're going to work 9 hours, but only clock in for 8.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do about it because I'll report you otherwise. It's like it's only to call back to his criminal past.
I guess because like that initial scene was enough to just go, oh, okay, so he's just a ex-con. Like, okay. But like this really drives it home. Apparently, like, and then after Hendershot goes away, he's like, he talks to Brett and he's like, well, I guess you found out my secret. And it's like who fucking cares, man? I don't care.
And then she's like, I'm so turned on. Your criminal past makes me so horny in this apocalypse we're in right now.
Yep. Because
let's take an hour out to fuck.
Yeah. Because I believe, no, there's a little bit. And then they cut to a scene where they're just like fucking.
Yeah.
Yep. But back outside, Deke finds a drainage ditch, and he finds a drain pipe that leads into the truck stop, but there's a cage on it that he can't get past. So we set this up. This is Chekhov's drain pipe. And now night falls on the truck stop. Bill and Brett get down, like I said. But by night, we can see a green glow in the sky, and Bill tells Brett about Haven, which is an island off the coast where there's no cars. And if they can get there...
Which is interesting because this movie comes out around the same time or maybe a little bit before Tommy Knockers comes out. And Tommy Knockers takes place on an island in Maine called Haven.
All right. Yeah,
and so I believe
he must have been writing that at the same time. Man, Tommy Knockers
I think so.
Is a fucking cocaine book, too.
That's the one that he wrote after. I think that's when he got sober.
Yeah. Not a very good book. But, so no cars. If we can just get to a sailboat, he knows how to sail it out there because he used to cruise sailboat, conveniently. But what about everything else?
You don't even have to explain any of that.
No.
So much weird, crazy shit has happened in this movie, and they have not explained any of it. Now, all of the sudden, it's like someone at the studio is like, okay, hold on, everybody. You got to at least say X, Y, and Z. And it's like,
right, yeah. Like,
why
again,
now?
Again, studio notes. It's got to be producer notes. Like, you got to.
I want to know how a Walkman killed someone, not how they're going to get to an island.
Yep. But meanwhile, Wanda is cracking up.
Oh man,
and
this is no wire hangers ever. That is what this
is because she runs outside screaming, "We made you! We made you!" Which is like, it's the song. It's called "Who Made Who," right?
Yeah.
We made you. But she's not just screaming; she is gesturing wildly.
It is wild. She is just.
Her body is jerking in every direction.
It's like a weird kabuki dance. Like she is just flailing wildly, but in this like herky-jerky movement that looks like she's kind of like in a cartoon. She drank some poison and now her body is like locking up before she goes rigid and dies.
It's like that. She's having a seizure. Like it's crazy what she's doing.
She is just top volume.
The way that she writhes and undulates. Yeah, it's...
Yes, exactly. It's that.
So the trucks, they go out, they pull her back in. But the trucks cut the power to the truck stop, and in the darkness, everybody can hear the Bible salesman out in the ditch screaming. So he's still alive, but he's badly hurt. And so we cut out. Deke finds a way into a drainage pipe as a huge convoy of trucks comes driving in. So now there's more fucking trucks.
This movie is so unevenly paced. It is like wildly uneven.
Yeah, it goes hard.
Because there are huge stretches where you're just like, God, fucking step on it already.
Yeah. And it's not a very long movie. It's about 98 minutes long.
It's 88 minutes or something. It's like just at the threshold.
Yeah. Bill and Curtis have a plan to go out and help Loman by sneaking out of the showers and down through a drain. So down into the shit closet they go.
And this is another part where it's like the tone of this movie is also really weird and all over the place.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden it's like this weird buddy comedy in the sewer.
Yeah. And this is it. This is where Curtis again invites us into his world of piss play, asking how many people you think have peed in this? And this being knee-deep water that they're wading through, so gross. It's super gross. It's just the implication of what they're doing because they're not just like wading through it. They're like hands and knees through.
Yeah, and then Emilio Estevez like slips or something and it splashes into his face and it's like this real kooky moment.
Yeah, he has definitely got like hepatitis and like this is so nasty.
It's just it's such a weird, like, hard turn from like horror action movie to weird comedy.
Yeah, yeah. So they come out the other side of the drain pipe. It's Deke, and he finds Loman just laying there in the ditch, and he thinks he's dead, but he's wrong because as he's getting away, Loman suddenly lunges and grabs him, demanding that Deke pull him to safety. He's like, "I'll kill you," and like all this stuff. And the kid's like, "I can't. You're too heavy." And he's this, but this is when Bill and Curtis come along and they find him. And they grab him and they duck back under the drain just as a dump truck kind of like charges down on them. And into the ditch, tries to take him out. But they make it back into the diner, taking out another truck with a missile on the way in. And this is when Deke finds out that his dad's dead. So in the morning, we find a bulldozer in this little military truck with a machine gun mounted on it come driving up to the truck stop. Bulldozer trashes Hendershot's car, pushes it into the diner. We can't help but feel like it did the right thing. Like that it did nothing wrong. Hendershot fires a missile at the bulldozer, which doesn't do a whole lot because it's a piece of heavy equipment, And
meanwhile he's stuffing missiles into his pockets.
Yeah, and
that doesn't seem like a good idea.
He's like, "You want a war? I'll give you a war." And then just as soon as he says that, the machine gun truck just strafes the truck stop. And
Art Hindle is a great actor. I love that guy.
Yep, and everybody who's standing up basically gets hosed down with machine gun bullets, and we get like basically a RoboCop level of blood as this happens. Like it's Squib City.
It is such a great moment, though, like because you can just see it; they're all just exploding all over people,
yep.
And you can tell that it's not because it's external; it's blowing out, not
yeah. That's probably they don't do it in this movie, but they do it in a lot of movies. The thing that fucking bothers me is when they do the thing where they shoot him in the head and the shit blasts against the window, the fucking window doesn't break.
Mm-hmm.
God, I recently, I can't remember what it was. I saw something, it might have been on TV where they actually did break the window, and I was like, thank you. So yeah, but yeah,
this moment of chaos is really fantastic.
Squibs are the best. I fucking love them. I wish they did that, but like every they're messy, and it's hard to clean up and do, if you need to do multiple shots. So now that's all.
And unfortunately, this is also where Wanda buys it.
Yep. So she freaks out and she grabs the missile launcher off of Hendershot. And she goes out again screaming, "We made you!" Mm-hmm. But this time, for her troubles, she gets just hosed down with bullets and accidentally fires a missile at a truck full of Miller High Life, which awesome explosion. The thing fucking goes everywhere. There's beer cans flying. And this must have been a subconscious middle finger to his alcoholism. Just, because I believe he was a Miller High Life guy. Oof. Yep. The champagne appears.
Champagne my ass.
I don't miss it. It. Yeah. So what we find out now, because they start to hear like a beeping. I think it's one of them's beeping their horn or something like that. And luckily,
Morse code.
Yeah, luckily Deke knows Morse code.
And why does he know it? He just got a merit badge.
Yeah.
And I'm like, did you? You're like Tilda Swinton. I don't know who you are, what you are, how old you are.
How old are you, Deke?
He could be 12 or 38 for all I know.
Yeah. But what we find out is the trucks are running out of gas, and they're like, "You're going to come out here and pump gas for us, fill us back up. If you do this, like,
and this is where you're at the point where it's just like you just need to accept that this is what's happening in the movie.
This is such a fucking long part. So this is the thing is in the short story Trucks, for a short that's like 20 pages long. The bulk of the story is about people pumping gas just endlessly, and this scene goes on forever. But at least it's set to Hell's Bells because that song rules. Yeah, but everybody takes turns at the pumps, pumping up a huge line of truck. They do a lot of like crane shots in this to sort of like be like, "Ooh, it's not just these guys. Look here over the horizon. There's trucks just down the street for the horizon."
And they make it seem like whatever they're doing is like the most arduous manual labor. Like, this is a thing people do for a living every day. They pump gas all day long.
Oh, yeah.
They're acting like he's pumping gas like the thing is on fire when he's doing it.
Oh, yeah, but it's hot and it's dusty. But, also there's a shot where it's like they show his hands. His hands are all fucking callous and blistered from fucking pumping gas. But like everybody's taking turns and the songs playing. And
Like, he's not like an 18th century ditch digger. Like, you're pumping gas.
Yeah, like they're all like, wiping their fucking brow and like being exhausted and shit. But the thing that they really want you to know is it's hot and it's dusty, which this is a thing that goes a long way in these movies.
Oh yeah, this is when he starts like giving that. He has this weird monologue about brooms,
Yeah,
and aliens, and I'm watching. I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about?
yeah. So like the big,
It's more exposition, I think, but
yeah, because so there's the big threat in this scene is heat. They're all it's a really solid way to sort of sell the peril of a siege movie. He did this in Cujo, and the adaptation really fucking leans into that because most of that movie is Dee Wallace and Danny Pintaro in a car
screaming in a
car
car.
that is covered in dog drool, and it's hot and it's dusty and it's so fucking nasty. It's just one of the most.
I remember that movie being really good. I won't watch it again because it's got animal stuff that I don't want to see.
Yeah.
But I remember it being a pretty good movie.
Yeah. And also like that's something that really works to the advantage of Texas Chainsaw Massacre as well. Like, like hot and dusty.
Except because it was really happening.
It was really, really hot and really dusty.
They were actually dying in that heat.
Yep.
Toby Hooper pressed on.
Yep. Something that just looks nasty. You don't even need really to have direct experience with hot and dusty. Like just the visual representation of it is very oppressive. It sucks.
It's a thing that everybody can recognize and understand.
Yeah. So this is the part that you were just talking about, where on the edge of exhaustion, Bill theorizes that it's not the comet that's controlling the trucks. It's these aliens, and they're here to clear out the people who live here so they can move in. So keep this in mind for when the fucking movie ends.
And you watch the part, and you think, sure, why not?
Yeah, I guess this makes perfect sense at this point. Handy
could have said anything; it wouldn't have mattered.
Would not have mattered because we're rounding the corner. We're coming towards the end. Handy reveals that they found a pipe in the basement that they can all escape through, and that leads to the same blocked pipe that Deke found originally. I'll say this: for as insane as this fucking movie is, it's at least narratively consistent in some of the shit that it sets up. Like this is kind of like a meaningless callback, but like it connects, like dots are connected in a way that makes sense, even while nothing else is really making sense.
Well, that's the thing. It's so weird. Is like it explains some weird shit, like the grate on the pipe. It goes to great lengths to explain that, or to explain why he is working 9 hours but only getting paid for 8. It goes out of its way, and it doesn't explain anything else. It's just like, why are these watermelons falling so goddamn fast and hard? Who cares?
Yep. So yeah. So they can escape through this grate if they can move it. So Bill has this plan, and he goes out, and like that machine gun truck is there. It's just tracking everybody with a gun, and he grabs a guy who's like sitting on the bulldozer, like presumably gassing it up, and he's like, "Hey, I've got a plan. When I say run, run." Hell of a plan, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
But when he does this, he's like, run, and he produces a fucking hand grenade. He throws it at the machine gun truck, which blows it up into a million pieces. And so everybody then like piles down into the basement, and they go out, they make their escape, but now the trucks are like, we must have revenge, and so they go full convoy on.
And this is the rest of their explosions budget.
Yep.
This is all of it. They're gonna use it all. It's like the end of the fucking fireworks display.
Yeah, and so the trucks go full convoy. They crash through the place. They're knocking over everything. And while this is happening, like a truck full of like liquid oxygen like crashes into the Dixie Boy, and then ignites, and the whole fucking building just goes up in a humongous fireball.
Now, is that a miniature, or did they really blow that?
So
up?
they
because
really,
at a certain point, it looks like it's really like it's the landscape.
It is. They built that truck stop just for the movie, so they could.
What is the budget on this movie? It has to be insane.
I'm gonna look this up because that's a really good question.
Because I believe this actually did pretty well, didn't it? Financially.
Oh yeah. This was a hit. This was not. It's a crappy movie, but okay. So the budget was $9 million. Box office 7.4. But
wow.
it is definitely so. box office, when it was De Laurentiis movies, it didn't really fucking matter if a movie did well or not in terms of box office. Really, his strategy.
This is quantity, not quality.
His strategy was selling rights to overseas. So like, he would make like it could be a flop here, but it would make up the more than make up for it elsewhere. So that's what he was doing. So that's just domestic box. This movie definitely made its fucking budget back and definitely turned a profit. And it's certainly like in the age of like video rental and since fucking Blu-ray and DVD and all that stuff.
Because they don't include that, right? When they do.
No. Box office is just box office. And so like and that's the thing, we never really find out. I don't know if there's a way. I don't think it's reported on. Like these movies,
what you would do, you could do it. You'd have to look at SoundScan. And do it
yeah. But like these movies definitely like they might be like a box office flop, but like they definitely video rental was a fucking humongous mover. So like I'm sure that like the fucking take for this movie came in and they were like, oh yeah, well we're million shy of our budget, whatever, we'll make it up in the next year and just video rental. It's like it's one of those things. This movie, it definitely did okay. So everybody manages to escape. Huge 80s style explosion. Must have been fucking awesome to shoot that. Like just to watch that from a distance as that thing goes up, because it is.
So that $9 million budget today would be $25 million.
Jesus Christ! I mean, that's not a small budget.
Yeah. Because they just blew up half of North Carolina. So.
Yeah, but yes, they built that truck stop as a set. I believe it was on De Laurentiis like property.
They owned like a big not a resort, but like a huge piece of land.
Yeah. So as everybody escapes, the Green Goblin takes to the highway, and we get our payoff to Chekhov's airplane as we see it fully vertical, nose down in the middle of a school bus.
School bus
crashed. So yeah, we had a little bit more action in the burbs as they're nearly found out by a speaker outside of a fast food.
Now I think I've got some questions about this.
Yeah.
It is a fast food, so they're outside the fast food place, and the speaker says like "humans near" or whatever.
Yeah, something
keeps saying. Here's how speakers work. Someone has to say something in order for it to be transmitted.
Yep. Hey,
who is saying something?
Let me answer that with a question. Why are you asking questions right now?
You know who's saying that? Cocaine. That's just cocaine talking at you.
Yeah, this is when Deke steps up with his fucking gun and just like hoses it down with bullets.
Yep.
And then he relinquishes it to Brett, and he's like, I won't need this anymore, because he's like, that's for my dad. He says.
What?
That was his revenge for his dead father.
What the fuck is happening at this point?
Yep. And then the ice cream truck reappears and is promptly shot up by Curtis with his Uzi, and like
with glee, no less.
Yeah. Oh yeah. With a huge fireball, it comes flying out of the fireball as well. Like they're really pulling out all the stops now. Like we got to have it. And the gang finally gets to the marina where they find a boat. But one of the diner extras, who I don't believe has a name, like, I mean, even if he did, who gives a shit? But he spots a lady hanging out of her car wearing a huge gaudy diamond ring. He stops to strip it off of her corpse.
He's gonna get his comeuppance.
Yep. And just in a perfectly Stephen King moment, he ends up run down for his avarice by the Green Goblin. And then just as everybody gets on board the boat, the Green Goblin comes charging in, but Bill hits it with another missile, like right in the fucking...
This shit ain't over yet.
Yeah, right. Like it is a one-liner. I can't remember. It's like, eat this or something like that, because it goes right in his mouth, causing it to explode, go all over the goddamn place. And the thing is that Green Goblin like face piece, there were like several of them, obviously, and I believe like one of them survived, but like it ended up in like some boneyard for a while, just kind of rotting, and some dude found it and was like, oh yeah, it's that movie, I love that. And so he kept it, and then sort of exchanged hands with a couple of collectors before it ended up in the hands of a guy who like fully restored it. Now he takes it around to cons and stuff like that, so you can like.
It's pretty cool looking. I mean,
as cool.
As this movie is dumb as shit, but it the eyes light up.
Yeah, they turn red.
Cool.
It's a very, I love it. It's a really, it doesn't make any fucking sense, but neither does anything else in this movie. But it's a really awesome little detail that I really love. And so they sail to safety, and we get the last title card, which explains that a UFO in orbit was found and destroyed by a Russian weather satellite, in quotes, that had nuclear missiles and a laser cannon
A
on it.
laser cannon.
Yep.
And class 4 nuclear missiles.
Hey,
that is the most 1980s shit I have ever read.
Yeah, you want to know something? Totally fucking meaningless. What the fuck is that? It sounds very fancy and very sci-fi.
Well, how did it end? Science and lasers.
Yep. And so just before the credits roll, we get one last Connie scream as she announced that because she's seasick, she's going to, and I quote, whoops her cookies.
Yep. Ba-dum-bum.
Roll credits.
And then it just fucking ends.
Yep. Oh,
this
but we
wild ride.
One of the titles at the end, like after the nuclear missiles thing, is the Dixie Boy survivors are still survivors.
That's right. And then I don't know if you noticed, for some reason, as the credits start to roll, the casting director is the top of the credits.
Yeah,
because I think they were like, "Look who pulled this shit together."
Yeah. Yep. The fucking
Nancy from the casting company. She's the one to talk to if you've got questions.
Yeah, Maximum Overdrive, you guys. Fuck yes. This is, like I said, it's 100% cocaine. It's a crazy fucking 80s action horror movie. It's about as dumb gets, but it is so fucking fun.
I cannot think of a single movie that is like this. Because they don't give inexperienced people this much money.
No, like in that regard, absolutely not. I cannot think of anything like that.
Like this movie is so badly directed. It is a wonder that it actually completed. But the fact that they were just like, oh, sure, Stephen King wants to make a movie. Here is $9 million.
Yeah, like I don't even like. I mean, when like Rob Zombie
and a legit cast.
Oh yeah. Like when Rob Zombie.
They were like, fine, but you get Bill Moseley.
Yeah, but he wanted Bill
Moseley. We're not gonna give you you're not getting Tom Cruise.
Oh yeah, you're not getting like Maximum Place. You get Rainn Wilson and Sid Haig, but I mean, he wanted Sid Haig. But also, he didn't get like fucking $9 million. I don't know what House of a Thousand Corpses.
And even Rob Zombie kind of knows how to. I think Rob Zombie is actually a competent director.
Oh sure,
his movies are terrible, but I think he's a good director.
Yeah.
But this is the embodiment of the 80s. This is a person who has so much wealth and privilege and power. And he says, I want to direct a movie. And everybody goes, okay. There are people who fight their entire lives just to make a short film.
Yeah.
People with talent and drive and determination. And Stephen King walks into a fucking studio and is like, I want to make a movie. And they're like, all right, cool.
Yeah. Stephen King, drunk with power.
You can just buy your way into being a director.
Yeah, I mean, but also,
and then talk about it as though you're gonna do it again.
Yeah, people have since asked Stephen King, like, why haven't you directed again? And his reply is, haven't you seen Maximum Overdrive?
Yeah, because it turns out it's really fucking hard.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's extraordinarily difficult to make a fucking movie, particularly when there's like a major studio behind it and you've got a real cast of people and a shitload of money. It's I mean, I suppose to the average person in the 1980s, like Stephen King was huge, he still is, but then
this is Michael Jackson level. Well, not quite, but it's up, for a writer.
Yeah, and I guess it just makes sense that he would want to make a movie, and like if somebody was like, Stephen King wants to direct
just
a movie,
think he could.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Because he's hung around enough movie sets. It's like, dude, those are not the same thing.
Yeah. But, yep, Maximum Overdrive. I love it to death. It is a tremendously bad movie, but good God, is it great. So
it has these weird pacing moments where you're just like, all right, I'm kind of over this. And then something else happens and you're right back in.
Yep. Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. So what are we doing? How does our second week of Stephen King Rules go?
Well, we're going to be watching the criminally underseen and poorly remembered werewolf film, Silver Bullet.
And I again, another one that I just watched recently. I went on a Stephen King binge a little while ago. Much better than I remember it being. Yep. So be here in 2 weeks when we do Silver Bullet.